Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining me on Get Pash-On-It. I'm Jim Pascalides. I'm your resident expert at Social Security, Medicare, and New York State of Health questions. Thanks for joining us. Today's topic is a Medicare topic and will be very beneficial for those of you that have never heard of it, and definitely has been beneficial to clients that I have, and our guest today who's joining me also has seen the results of helping people find this program that we're going to talk about today and what it does for their families and the impact it has and the appreciativeness they have of us showing them that it even exists. So today's guest is Mr. Matt Monacelli. He is a friend of mine. We were introduced to Medicare at the same time, just a couple years ago. He is a sharp individual, young man with a lot of desire to help folks. And when it came to discussing this topic, he was one of the first at the top of my mind to have this discussion with. So without further delay, let me introduce Matt to the stage. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time. For context, real quick, I'm in Rochester, New York. Where are you, bud?
Yeah, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So as Pash mentioned, I'm originally from Western New York. It's a little town called Albion right between Buffalo and Rochester, but I relocated to the Carolinas last year and currently residing in Charleston, South Carolina.
Awesome. And I'm sure the weather's just like if I open my window blind there,
Yeah,
it's probably the same, right?
it is. Yeah, very cold and snowy
Yeah,
here.
April 11th, and we just had snow the other day. So
Yeah,
yeah, I feel really bad for
I
you.
got a nice sunburn if you can't tell, so you should see my back.
No, thanks. Appreciate that. Anyway, so yeah, Matt, also just a little quick story. So we were a part of an agency called Empower Agency, LLC. I'm still directly working with Empower. And Matt, you're working with us, but also you are now the co-founder of RetirEaze LLC, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, the co-founder of RetirEaze Agency LLC, we opened up September of 2024. So, Bryce Pritchard and myself, who I'm sure you'll have Bryce on here at some point, nice,
Sure.
sharp young man himself there. But we're both from the same town. He actually relocated to the Carolinas as well. So we figured, hey, let's get our own thing going. We've added a few more products, than just
Mhm.
Medicare. So, trying to really become a full scope agency.
Right.
But yeah, so I think we're about 8 months into it at this point.
That's awesome. I wish you all the best. And again, to me, the core of everything that you do, and the reason why we get along is because it's all about first finding how can we help other people, and
Absolutely.
Medicare is the way we were introduced, and definitely as we talk to clients, we can see these other avenues that they need this assistance with, and that's why even I got the Social Security analysis aspect is only because people were asking me so many questions about Social Security. I was like, might as well just go learn it and be a source of knowledge there. So awesome. So, all right. So people tuned in today because the title of today's episode is Why Haven't I Heard of the Medicare Savings Program? Now, what gets most people's attention, even if they've never heard of this before, is that it's Medicare, which causes a lot of anxiety and nervousness, and costs go through people's
Yeah.
heads. But the word savings is a part that, hey, man, I've heard all these things about Medicare. Usually it's about what it's going to cost me, not what something will save me. So I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of people looking into this episode. So let's get right to that. So let's begin with this. We use initials and jargon in our industry, and we say MSP for short. Like we say it so often that we probably say it to people and they're like, what are you talking about? MSP, Medicare Savings Program. So can you describe in short, what is this program?
Yeah, the easiest way to explain it, it kind of sits there between Medicaid and Medicare. So it's for, lower income people that are above the the Medicaid threshold. So people that don't qualify for Medicaid can qualify for this program. And in short, what it does is just pays your Part B premium for you. So that $185 Part B premium, that is the standard for 2025. the Medicare Savings Program actually covers that for you. So it's an awesome program. Saves people, I think they whatever 185 is times 12, but a few $1,000s a year. Not a
$2,200,
There we
$2,220,
go.
I think. Yeah, but who's counting? Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
great explanation. And there are different levels of this thing. We're not going to get too intricate today, but the main thing that people will get value from and that we've helped in households already in our short time to do this, I mean, I've probably had 50 to 100, somewhere in there, of people that have actually helped that income come back to their household. And I still get thank yous. They look at me like I'm Santa. Maybe I need a bigger beard or something. But yeah, it's a great feeling too. And even more interestingly is everything we're talking about here with this MSP program, we do not get compensated on. So it really is just out of the goodness of our hearts that we're like, hey, to this individual we're meeting with, here's something that you could qualify for. Let's just see. Answer a couple quick questions. Let me help you if we need to help you with this application, and so on. So, but before we go and continue, I want to focus on a point of what you said about low income for another separate reason. I did an episode on scams. Well, so if you're not a low income individual, when you get these postcards, this is how marketers get your attention. A lot of times they'll have on the postcard, right? You tell me if you've seen the postcards that I'm kind of
oh
talking
yeah,
about.
they're everywhere.
Yeah, it says, are you saving, or you could be saving $2,400 a year. Sometimes it's about like a food benefit. Sometimes it's about on your Social Security. It just says these things and it gets your attention. Well, if you know the limit, and in each state it could be varied, but if you know that limit and you make more than that, then it's not a card you should respond to anyway. You shouldn't respond to those mass mailers, in my opinion, anyway. But if you're making like $100,000 a year, probably just toss it, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
enough of that. So let's go back to the MSP program itself. Now, when it comes to eligibility, so now that we've described it as basically one of the aspects is that it saves the Part B premium for individuals. So it doesn't, so explain that a little bit better. What happens to 185 that a person typically pays?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, it's Medicare Savings is kind of between like Medicaid and Medicare. So it's actually a state program that's offered through Medicaid. So it's not Medicaid, but Medicaid kind of oversees it. They're the governing body, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the state actually comes in, whatever state you live in, and they pay that $185 for you. So if you're collecting Social Security, the big thing is, you're going to get $185 a month raise. So that money just will really just go right back into your Social Security.
And what I like about that is I usually point out to the people, because like, yeah, they're not giving you money. You're keeping your money. It's money
Yes.
that you already have earned. And right off the top, they take this Part B premium out. So some people don't even know it's happening.
Oh yeah.
Right. Do you have clients that when you ask them about the Social Security income, they just say the net, what they
Yes.
receive. They don't really pay attention to those award letters at the end of the year before saying, hey, subtract blank. So here's your gross. Yeah. So you ever notice that?
Yeah. Yeah. All the time. I'll ask people, hey, are you paying for your Part B premium? And majority of people will just say, I don't know. Right. They have no idea if it's coming out of their Social Security or not.
Right.
As you mentioned, they know what that number is, but they're not really tracking, okay, is this minus $185? They might just think it's getting taxed or something. Who knows? But a lot of people don't know that that's actually coming out of their Social Security check.
Right. Okay. So I think we've got people's attention about this 185. I mean, for some families, by the way, and if someone's still watching, that $185 a month is impactful. Right. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just. It's necessary. It's for groceries. It's for surviving. So that $2,000 plus a year is a huge thing. So when it comes to figuring out if you qualify for it, what recommendations do you have, or what steps should a person take?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always should just start with your Medicare broker if you have one. Obviously, it's much easier to work with one person than having a lot of different people, that you're reaching out to trying to get answers. So I would always recommend you start with your broker. If you don't have a broker, though, the easiest way to get information is to call your county Social Security Social Service office. Actually, not Social Security, Social
Yep.
Service
Social
office.
service. Yep.
So
Yep.
it's again the governing body of Medicaid. So wherever you would get, Medicaid, food stamps, HEAP, all that kind of stuff is going to be the
Mhm.
same department that you would go to for the MSP.
Yep. Absolutely. And if so, like you said, if you have a broker, and just to be really clear, on the Medicare side, one, not everybody has a broker. Two, if they have a broker, not every broker delves into this topic, right?
Yeah.
Because, like I hit on earlier, we don't get compensated to do that. We brokers don't get compensated to help someone tap into this system's program. So, but if you're going to do it on your own, and this is where it can get cumbersome, and why you probably do want a broker, is that it can be a little confusing because you're going to those offices. And if you know anything, if you've ever been into one of those offices or made a phone call to one of those offices and you see anything in the news, positions are getting cut, waits are getting longer, and all these other potential negatives are just continuing to increase, the delays. So what I suggest you do is you at least can go, if you have a computer and you're watching this, you can Google your state's income limits. I think that's one place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, and I don't know if you agree with this, Matt, but if it's close, if the income looks like, oh man, I'm over by $100, what do you suggest to your clients if they're that close?
Great question. Yeah, I always recommend that people apply. It doesn't hurt you
Mm-hmm.
if you get denied. There's no
Mm-hmm.
penalty. There's no fee attached to the application. If you think you're close, apply. And the best thing about in New York State is they don't look at your assets. So you can have a lot of money in the bank. You can have stocks, things like that. If you're not taking a consistent draw from that and it's not a monthly income, they don't care what kind of assets you have. So if your income, if you're only collecting Social Security, you should absolutely apply.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I recommend the same thing. If you're close, apply.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The worst thing is, and unlike all the other things you can apply for, the form is a one pager. And I just, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to demonstrate and show the New York State um, application. Let's see if I can get it real quick on the first attempt.
There we
So,
go.
yeah, here it is. And let me close that window. It's a one pager, literally just basic info. One of the key spots that I usually highlight with an individual is this segment right here. Would you like us to consider retroactive reimbursement of your Medicare premiums? Sometimes that can go back as far as 3 months for an individual. So that's $555 if I did that math correct.
Oh yeah.
Um, and simple, one page. And here's a source of income for anybody in the household. So you just write the name, write the source. So if it's Social Security here, the amount, and so on. And that is it. The only other thing, and you might want to speak to this, but I'll zoom in and maybe it looks a little better, is this is what has to be included, this section. Do you want to talk to that yourself?
Yeah. So they just it's verification documents. So they want to see your Medicare card, make sure that you're collecting Medicare, proof of income. Again, if you're only collecting Social Security, just bring in that statement. And then if you do have a pension, anything like that,
Yeah.
they will want a copy of that as well. If you have any health insurance premiums outside of Medicare, typically people that are on Medicare won't have another
Right.
premium. But if you are, on Medicare and potentially still working, they will want to see both of those insurances, driver's license, any kind of identification, and then proof of residence. We just recommend an electric bill.
And you just make photocopies. A lot of times I have clients come right into the office. We make the copies for them.
Mhm.
They fill it all out. I just make sure they don't miss certain little boxes that are easy to miss. and then they go and they drop it off. I recommend they go to the local Department of Social Services. Do
Yes.
you do the same thing?
Yeah, funny story is I had a gentleman that was down in New York City actually 2 days ago it was at this point. He had sent one in about 2 months ago because he used the address that was on their website on the form on the actual application, mailed it to the exact website that it said to mail it to. We spent an hour on the phone with their office yesterday. They never received it. So we just said, hey, unfortunately, you got to fill it out again, and I would recommend you physically going to drop it off. So they're going to receive it. There's no, hoping that the mail gets there, hoping that
Right.
they receive it, that it gets to the right department. So yeah, we absolutely recommend that you drop it off. And in certain states, you can even do it online. New York, you have to, actually physically fill out a piece of
Right.
paper, but certain states you can actually apply online. So, if you guys have any questions, obviously you can reach out to us and we can help you with that. But the easy way to do it is just to Google search Medicare Savings Program, whatever state you're in.
Yeah, we'll have some links in our description of the podcast episode here. And I have one story to add. So my mother, I went and she had been on Medicare for a number of years, but I was a school teacher. It wasn't until I transitioned into a new career where I'm educating folks on this Medicare stuff that I found this program. So I went to her. I'm like, I don't know why you're paying for that. It doesn't seem to make sense that you're paying this premium. So I got the application. I was a rookie. I didn't really know. I was like, I hope this works. I filled out the application that we just shared. I drove to the social services office. I went and waited in line. They said, oh, let's just check it. And then they said, but you're going to go drop it in that box over there. I did. They would not give me a receipt. I wanted a receipt.
Mm-hmm.
So we submitted and we waited and we waited and we waited. 9 months went by. My mother called that office. They said, you've been approved. She called Medicare. They're like, we don't see any acknowledgement that you've been approved.
Oh, boy.
9 months. Well, but here's the good part of it. Because it's stamped a date of submission, the date that you submit it, it goes back to that date. So my mother received 9 months of premium. And back then it was, I believe it was $164 a month a couple of years ago. And that was a huge amount of money. I think I became the favorite son again. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure I moved up the rankings and was like king of the house. Don't tell my brother or my sister. I'm just saying. But yeah, awesome. So yeah. And I tell that story to anyone who's going to apply because I don't want the expectations to be like, oh, it's going to happen next month. It's not necessarily that quick, but the date of getting it in, just get it in. It's one page and I'll help you with it. So,
yeah. And we've seen that happen. It's typically not this fast, but if you do physically drop it off, I've seen it approved in as fast as like 2 weeks. So, you can see both ends of it, but
absolutely.
If you're physically handing it in, it could potentially, we're not saying it will, but I have in few cases seen it approved very fast.
Yeah. And I can say that too, even with like jumping into Social Security and trying to start your benefits, your income. Mm-hmm. I've seen occasional quick, but most long. What I always tell my clients though is I prepare them for the long. Anything I under promise because one, I don't control it. You and I have nothing to do with it. We wish we could snap our fingers and they get approved and all these things, but it's not something in our control.
Yeah, and something I noticed, I mean, you just touched on it with your mom, but people that have Medicaid and they transition into Medicare, the last like 12 months in New York, I've been noticing a lot of people not getting that covered, even though they keep their Medicaid. So that's something that I've been noticing happen pretty frequently recently.
Not to get too much into the minutia, but before you're 65, it's usually through the state of New York.
Yeah.
And then after 65, it usually goes transitioning to the county.
Yep.
So sometimes there's a hiccup there. Sometimes people don't do their recertifications. Sometimes, lots of reasons. But to stick back to the MSP concept itself, there's something else that people might confuse with MSP. And I think you're more of an expert on this aspect of it, and it's something that's to do with the prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
So that's called, it's got a couple names. The first thing is called extra help. The other thing that you might hear is LIS, or low income subsidy.
Mhm.
And what this does is, actually, if you apply for the MSP, it actually gets you automatic access into LIS, or extra help. And what that does is it really lowers your prescription costs, is the first thing. So
Mhm.
you'll see that one of two things happen, is that you're not going to pay more than $12.15 for any kind of prescription that you take. So no more, $47 copay or 25% coinsurance. It's going to cap your drugs at $12.15. And the other great thing that happens is that drug deductible goes away. So, if your plan has a $590 drug deductible that you have to meet in order to get, that $47 copay, or the, 25% coinsurance, it actually wipes that right away. So, no drug deductible, no expensive drugs. And then obviously with all that happening, that you're never going to hit that $2,000 out of pocket cost for your drugs that's new for this year.
Right.
So, there's some big things that happen to it. And then on the, along with that, this is getting a little bit more into the weeds with things, but it also gives you a credit on your Medicare Advantage plan. So in New York, it's a very high limit. I believe it's $72, $73 and some change. So you can actually get an upgraded plan and potentially not pay for it if you have extra help. So it's an awesome, awesome feature.
Yeah. So in summary, because that does get very minutiae. In fact, we could probably do a whole episode on just that
For
part.
sure.
So just in summary, what we're saying is, by applying for the MSP, that's the thing that we're talking about today, the big topic, is there's also some side effect benefits. And one is through the prescription drug side. And yes, I like that you did mention Medicare Advantage on that, because it's so confusing. People don't think a reduction of the MSP, the Medicare premium on Part B, that you maybe can't have an Advantage plan, and that's not true. So,
Mhm.
so that we can dive into again, but I'm glad you brought that up. Um, and let's say someone qualifies for it, Matt, this year. Do they have this forever?
You actually have to requalify every year. So they'll send you, in New York, they'll send you a purple piece of paper. So that purple paper is your MSP, which will say, hey, you need to requalify for this, because incomes do change. Typically, if you're only collecting Social Security, your income's probably not going to ever jump above that threshold. But they do want to, get some documentation each year to make sure that you still qualify for it. So
Right.
we're hoping at some point here soon that you don't need to apply for this stuff anymore. They'll just kind of have your information in the system and automatically renew it for you. But as of right now, yes, you do have to, recertify every year for it.
Yeah, and we need to bring that up, because I'm sure you've had it. I know I've had clients who, in the Medicaid side, in the MSP side, they ignore some paperwork, and I can understand why, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of they're like our friends and family now, our clients, though,
For
they
sure.
they get bombarded by so much mailing, and a lot of times we even give instructions to them, avoid things that you're not sure about. In fact, I'll have, and I'm sure you do too, have clients that I tell, when you get something and you're not sure, call me. You're either
Oh
going to
yeah.
show me a picture, send me a photo with it, blacked out your name, just so I can see what it says, and I can tell you, because I've had so much practice now seeing these documents, whether it's legit or not. So it
Yep.
does. It can be a problem. I tell people, you gotta make sure you don't miss your recertification paperwork. Don't ignore that, because then you lose everything you worked hard, to apply for.
Yep. Yeah. I just tell people with the MSP, keep an eye out for a purple paper.
Yeah.
You're not really getting too much purple mail.
So,
So
right.
it's just an easy thing to notice.
So we can snip this all out later, because we maybe waited too long for this part, but income limits in New York State, as of the document that was made by Medicare Interactive in 2025, January 2nd, and I believe it's actually been adjusted since then. I will just share the screen quickly, and we can make this into a snippet. later.
Yep.
And this is what we have right here. So if you can see right on the screen here, and I'll try and zoom in again. These are the numbers that existed as of January 2nd. And again, I believe this bumped up. I don't know if you have a more accurate document, but right now, let's just assume this is the most accurate number provided by Medicare Rights Center. A person who would qualify for Medicaid would have to be, as an individual loan, under $1,752 per month. Or what we're talking about here is this QI, a qualified individual can get this MSP that pays the Part B premium if they're below $2,355 a month, or as a couple, $3,189 a month. So these forms exist. I am sure if a state has the program available, which I believe all states have it available, the rules and numbers can be different. So make sure you can call that local DSS or Medicaid office and find out those limits, or just Google it. A lot of times they're pretty accessible that way. Anything you want to add on that?
I guess just a quick little, thing is that these limits are based off of the federal poverty level. So every state's a little bit different, but I believe in New York State, it's like right around 200% of the poverty level. I think it's a little bit less than 200% would qualify. So if you want to just get some easy numbers, if you do a generic lookup of MSP, they're going to give you the mandated one for every single state, but certain states are going to be higher. So you'll see New York limits are actually higher than the national average. So that is just a good thing to look out for. If you just search a generic, Medicare.gov or whatever MSP limits, it may not be the same as your state. Your state may have higher limits.
Yes, exactly. So, but some are lower. I was surprised. I think in West Virginia when we went there, it was low.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, it was very low. So yeah, until you go around and look around, you don't really understand. And I guess it doesn't matter for you as an individual. Those of you listening, it's what exists in my state. What are the rules there? That's really all that matters for you. Let us worry about the rest, I guess.
Yep.
So,
and as we mentioned earlier, even if you're not sure if you qualify, just reach out to your social services office and apply. See what happens.
Right. So in closing, unless there's anything else you think we should add, I think we've done a decent job.
Yeah, I think we pretty much touched on it. It saves a lot of people a lot of money, especially if you've just lost Medicaid. So, if you've lost Medicaid and you're not getting those Medicaid benefits anymore, this is the next best thing.
Yes, agreed. All right. So in short, in summarizing MSP, you could be saving quite a bit of money by applying and qualifying for this program. There's experts out there that can help. We're here for you. We'll have our information in the description in our of this episode. And as always, if you have these questions in Medicare, Social Security, New York State of Health in particular, don't try and answer it yourself. Just get Pash-On-It.
That's right.
So anyway, thanks for listening. Also, please don't forget, if you found this informative and like to see more content like this, like, subscribe, share, comment, and let us know. Ask some more questions. That'll help drive the topics that we cover. And we're glad to be of service and help everyone out. So with that being said, thank you, Matt, for joining. And I really appreciate you. And I'm sure we'll be doing another one together in the future.